Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Rhythms of Success, Charting Your Career Path in the Music World, Part 1. My name is Heather Meyer, and I will be running everything in the background for our session today. We are thrilled to host today's panel discussion with our host, Katie O'Hara-LaBrie, as a two-part series. So let's get things started. I'm pleased to introduce today's host of our panel discussion, Katie O'Hara-LaBrie. Katie O'Hara-LaBrie is a composer, conductor, clinician, and cellist from Northern Virginia. An educator at heart, Mrs. LaBrie spent the first 15 years of her career teaching orchestra in Fairfax County, Virginia. She holds a Bachelor in Music Education from St. Olaf College, where she studied under Stephen Amundsen, and Masters of Music in Instrumental Conducting from George Mason University, where she studied with Anthony Maiello. To Katie and our panel, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. And I just want to start by talking a little bit about how this webinar came about. I, as she mentioned, have taught orchestra for 15 years. I was always going to teach orchestra. I started, I think, when I was maybe 12 years old. I knew that was what I was going to do. And then, as life sometimes does, life happened. And all of a sudden, that was not going to be a possibility for me anymore. For me, it was a health reason that took me away from the classroom. And I said, what am I going to do next? And so this kind of whole world of music careers all of a sudden opened up. And I was like, well, what path do I go? And so that's kind of the basis of how this webinar kind of came about. And so joining me today are a number of people from a variety of music careers. We're going to also continue that with even more careers in October that we'd love to see you at as well. And so I'm going to let everyone kind of introduce themselves. Why don't we go ahead and start with Arris, please.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I am Arris Golden, and I am currently the Assistant Director of University Bands and the Associate Director of the Spartan Marching Band here at Michigan State University.
And she'll be representing kind of just music education world in general. And then we have Jenna and Jason Day.
Hi, we're Jenna and Jason Day, and we own Day Violins, located in Northern Virginia. And we were representing like store owners, business owners, entrepreneurs, and the world of lutherie.
Great. And then next is Peter Kimosh.
Hey, I'm Pete Kimosh, and I'm here in Durham, NC, and I am half the time I'm a freelance bass player, and the other half of the time I run Deep Sound Studio, which is an audio and video production house.
And then lastly, John Mlynczak.
Hey everyone, John Mlynczak here. I am currently president and CEO of the National Association of Music Merchants, and I got my start as my career as a music educator. So glad to be here.
Excellent. And so in my role today is kind of twofold. I am hosting, but I'm also a panelist. So I'm going to be representing the world of music publications today. And I want to start by kind of talking about how we all got to where we are. Maybe we majored in music in college, maybe we didn't. Maybe we had a very straightforward path, or maybe like mine, it wasn't quite that way. How did we break into the field? That sort of thing. And so for me, it was always a very clear, straight path. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I had some experience composing and being published, and that kind of led me into this world of music publications. As my role now as a string editor, I wear a lot of different hats that I can kind of chat about later, but I've discovered that there are so many roles within the world of music publications, whether it is doing things like the editing of the music, or things like Heather, who introduced our presentation today, and running the background of events and things that the company does. So for me, I went to college at St. Olaf, and then later on, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do differently, I did do some additional training. I actually went and did a online course through Berkeley that helped me hone my skills as a music engraver. which is another field within the publication world. And so that is more like the formatting and like making sure the music looks pretty so you can all read it really nicely. But who knew that that was like a skill set that somebody has to have? I didn't know that was a job until I really thought about all these different things. So Arris, how did you get started and kind of what led you to where you are today?
Well, I think I always knew that I wanted to do something in music, but as people do, I avoided it when I first got to UNC Chapel Hill, and I actually have a full-on Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. Great. So then my parents, who were very patient people, when I looked at them and said, and kind people, when I said, I want to go back to school for music, because we got a new band director at the end of my time there by my junior year, who really, I think it was literally 10 of us who went, wait a minute, we did the wrong thing, and circled back and came back and did music ed degrees. So that happened. And then I started teaching middle school band and did that for 18 years. Toward the end of that 18 years of teaching, I met Kevin Sadatal. And I got a master's degree in there too, but I met Kevin Sadatal. And I said, well, if I'm ever going to study conducting and move up into the college ranks, which I would really love to do, this is the guy that I'm going to study with, because he understands how I function and how I work. And luckily it worked out for me to be able to get to here and eventually to end up being on faculty here. And there's more to the story, but that's the big bones within it.
Awesome. And then I know for Jenna in particular, I don't believe your college degree was in music at all. Is that correct? So tell us, Jason.
Yeah, I'm a former social worker, wedding planner, lots of different things. I was a nanny, like all the different things. And one day my husband came to me, he was an orchestra director, and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business with violins. What do you think about the name Day Violins? And I was nursing a baby at the time, and I said, sure, why not? And that's how my music career started. Although I did grow up in a musical family and all the things, but former social worker, which has come in very handy in the music world and the business world. So
I actually grew up with music in my life. I was a Suzuki kid. I was a violinist. I started when I was 4 years old. And then basically I grew up with two professional musicians as parents. My dad was in the Army Strings in Washington, D.C., and my mom was a private flute instructor.
Suzuki.
A Suzuki flute instructor. And then also I went to college for music. I was a music performance major, actually, on the violin. And so my design was to always, I wanted to play in a symphony orchestra. And so and that was my design. And then as they say, life took over and things went very differently. I ended up teaching orchestra for 18 years, both for Fairfax County and also at a private school here in Virginia. And then right during all of that, we started our business, because I wanted to see better instruments in the hands of kids, taking lessons. And so here we are.
And now you do also some luthier work too. So what kind of schooling or what did you do to get to that point?
Well, for a luthier, you can do one of two things. You can actually apprentice with a maker, with a restorer. You can do that for several years, learning the craft and trade. Or there are 4 violin making schools in the United States that you can attend and go to, and they offer 3-year degrees. And so when we've had luthiers that have worked for us in the past, there have been a combination. There's been people that have apprenticed and learned and worked in different shops for years and years and years, and then there's also people who wanted to learn how to make. One of the guys that I talked with, he walked by the Violin Making School of America in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he was watching these guys making violins in the window, and he was like, I want to do that. And so he went to school for that and learned how to do that as well. But those are the 2 main avenues that you do, and the same thing is with bows as well. You can apprentice with a maker, or you can go to school and learn how to do that as well.
But you've taken classes and you've also kind of learned on the job too. That's a lot. You can do a lot of learning on the job, some basic skills, and then he's also taken some bow classes too. So a little bit of a hybrid of everything was what he's done. So formal training, but definitely on the job training.
That's awesome. And I think that's a big important thing for sure. And then, so next we have Peter. Now, I personally have known Peter since high school, and I think you've been a gigging musician since before then. So tell us about kind of the life of a gigging musician, but then also how you kind of spun into the world of music production.
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong musician, and I played a whole bunch of instruments before I finally settled down on bass. I was around middle school, and just was fortunate to be surrounded by a group of like-minded people. We really learned how to play jazz together and music together, and we were gigging all throughout middle school and high school. And I went to UNC, Go Heels, and I got my Bachelor of Music there. And this whole time, I really kind of had a laser. I was playing in orchestras, but I had to have my sights were set on I was going to be a New York jazz bassist, and that's like where I was all headed. So, kind of common theme that we've been hearing again and again here. Life has other plans. Not long after I graduated, I got in a pretty serious accident. So living in a city that requires a lot of walking to get everywhere just was no longer realistic for me. So it was a process, but I stayed in Durham, and it was a process, but I really did learn that you can make lots of great you don't have to move to LA, you don't have to move to New York to make lots of connections and network. And so in my own way, I kind of forged through, and I was able to, tour all over the country and Europe and Central America, and get studio gigs all around from my little small town in Durham. And so as I was doing this, another major facet, audio and video production, I found myself in hanging out in countless studios, and other musicians would take breaks, but I would always hang out and bother the engineer and just, what's that do? What's that do? What's that do? And after doing that for 10 years, I was like, hey, I can do this. So was the birth of Deep Sound Studio. And I kind of similarly, that's how I got into video production about 10 years ago too. So yeah, life's not a straight line, but enjoy the journey.
I love that. And yeah, I really connect with that. Just the fact that you kept, bugging the audio engineers to learn. I think that's great. And I mean, that's half of what I'm doing right now. I'm learning on the job. This is my first year in my new role. And so I'm calling all the other editors I know and just, learning anything I can from anyone I can. And I think that's the sign of somebody who's passionate about what they're doing and wants to make it work. So that's awesome. So next we have John. You've also taken a turn on several different roles throughout your career. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've had a really fun run. I think I'm still going. I think for me it was always music. I always loved playing music, and there was never a choice of elective in middle school or high school. It was always like the choice has been made. I'm going to do band. I'm going to do music. When all my friends are wondering what they're going to major in college, it was just, I'm going to major in music education. And I really never thought twice, except I loved playing music so much. It was just something that made sense. And, from there, I became a music teacher. I graduated in Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, went straight to LSU, go Tigers, and started a master's in trumpet, and then later a second master's in education administration. And I just taught music, played music, and then through, like a lot of us, like, hey, what is recording? What is this? I just was fascinated with learning new skills. So ended up in the music industry. I had gotten pretty good at just recording, and I was doing recorded audio and started teaching it at my school and realizing that this is something that kids really like to do, to record music and learn to create and compose music using a digital audio workstation as well as notation software. And then just everything has moved so fast. So I got a job at PreSonus Audio, started an education division for them, started writing curriculum around, using all the different various recording tools and softwares, and then eventually live sound, anywhere from how to do sound for the Blue Devils Drum Bugle Corps down to how to record your middle school band concert and everything in between. Went to my first NAMM show and was blown away about how many careers exist in our industry and how big of a world this is. Got connected with the NAMM Foundation. That's how I met my friend Jenna. And we, did a lot of advocacy work. And then from there, I just kept going, got a job at Hal Leonard Publishing. So I have talked to engravers and editors, and I was in charge of, but in learning new skills, learning about running software companies and digital marketing and integrating digital and physical print and engraving and layout and formatting, and was a big piece of what I did. And then in a music education technology. And then I just recently started this job back in May 1st. And it has been a nonstop journey of just learning new skills and new things. But I think a lot about for all of us, I mean, for those of us who started in music, that's what we do as musicians. We're always learning. We're always going to the practice room to try to get better, always, refining our craft. And I think this career path for me has really been no different than that. Just always learning something new, excited about growing, and you take care of people on the way, and you do the right thing for the music industry.
And just for people that don't know, tell us what NAMM is and what NAMM does.
Right. So NAMM is the National Association of Music Merchants. We are the world's global music products association. We represent over 10,000 companies and individuals worldwide, that anyone who manufactures, sells, distributes, makes, now teaches and uses musical products. And so we hold the world's largest music products trade show in January in Southern California. And this is a gathering of the music industry to network and connect with manufacturers, distributors, retailers, influencers, media, artists, educators. We have a bunch of education programming. It's a magical, amazing show. There's nothing in the world like it. And then we are an association of our members. So we work year round to support the music industry through various lobbying efforts for music education. We work on trade issues. We work on global trade issues as the association that represents all music products. And we offer various benefits for all of our members. And then everything we do is done to support the NAMM Foundation, which gives back to music education and creates more music makers through granting to various other nonprofits, to recognizing best communities for music education, as well as working with other providers to make more music makers in the world. How's that?
So for those of you keeping score, I believe he said over 10,000 companies that you represent. So that's 10,000 companies times however many thousand jobs.
Over 500,000 employees globally represented those companies.
If you're looking for a job in music, starting with NAMM is a great place to look for, all these different, avenues that, when I was growing up, I thought music, going to college for music meant you were going to be either a performer or a teacher. And those two things I still do and I still love, but I've also learned that there are so many other things that you can do. So speaking of other things you can do, I think all of us know that our jobs are not that laser pointed thing that we think it is. Teaching doesn't mean, you're just playing music all day. I wish it was. It would be great if you could just play music all day. And of course that's what we always come back to, and that's what we all love. But what are some of the hidden skills or hidden hidden roles that are part of your job as a music educator, as a business owner, as all the different things that we are. So I'll just keep going around in circles. So I'll start again with Arris.
I think if I think back to what I was thinking when I was going into the field, I thought that I would, even though my mother was a teacher herself, I thought I'm going to just teach music all day and it's going to be really fun. And it is. But in order to get to teach music, there's things like administrivia that you have to manage, and you have to be good at that for your program to be able to thrive and survive, and for the students to get the things they need. So being really or be figuring out how to have a skill set that's organized is important. It's very important. And also figuring out how to be the best possible leader that you can be. I really truly wish that people like Simon Sinek had been around when I started teaching, because really reading things by him and reading things by another favorite of mine is Brene Brown have really helped me as I've continued to go through my career, really figure out how do I open up space to allow the students who are in the group to actually caretake the group, because it's so much more rich of a situation. It's so much more rich of an experience for them and for us as teachers. I have a teaching partner with the marching band up here. When we collaborate with them to lead. And I feel like in many ways we talk about that in music ed classes, but I wish we could just have the time to dig in a little bit more and have students that are going out understand it's like you don't have to try to be a dictator. You don't have to do that. You can build relationships with the students and build a program where the collaboration between them and you, their parents, the community, just can result in some pretty amazing things. So 2 skill sets I've had to develop over the years for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember from my teaching days, it wasn't just playing music. Yes, there's the administrative part, but that social emotional learning, which especially now after the pandemic is so, so important. And I think, one of the things that's been helpful for me is connecting with other music educators. Like I remember seeing you present at the Midwest clinic in Chicago on growth mindset. And that concept and how that plays into teaching and working with students. And so there's and kind of going back to I think it was Jenna said, we are always learning. We are always, growing as musicians and career people. So all right, speaking of Joe, do you have something else? Or no. All right. And speaking of Jenna and Jason, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the hidden skills beyond selling a violin.
Yeah. The big thing is that, being a music teacher for 18 years and then deciding to start a business, it's like drinking from a fire hose, trying to figure out everything that you need to do in order to be effective as a business owner. You have the financial piece that you have to manage. You have supply and demand that you have to manage, and the customer service part of things that you have to manage. That's where Jenna has been invaluable because she's such a people person. And then from there, being able, and then the big thing is making sure that I love what Arris was talking about having the growth mindset and making sure that you're thinking for the future. When somebody mentioned to me that, oh, you need to write a business plan, and I was like, what in the world is that? And so I had to take a moment to really educate myself on what it means to write a business plan, have an understanding of what you want your business to do, and how you can make it scalable and grow and have more impact, and being able to plan for the future effectively with the financial piece. The big thing that I didn't really realize that I needed to have as part of this job is first the knowledge of instruments. Learning what a French violin looks like, learning what a German violin looks like, and being able to recognize those and be able to and actually realizing that you need to be in the education business when you're working with customers and working with people, because that's the most important part, is that is being able to teach them about what they're potentially purchasing or buying or renting. But the big thing is that and I love what Jenna does and with making sure that, opportunity, what is your favorite phrase?
Talent is universal, opportunity is not. So we provide the opportunity for people to start the musical journey. So, and actually, I always tell my employees we have the best job in the entire world because we get to hand them their first instrument. We get to talk to them about their first instrument, and it may be the 200th rental of the day, but to that child, it is their first instrument. It's the first time they've touched a violin. It's the first time they've sat down and touched the cello. We have the best job in the whole entire world. We start the music makers. We start them on their journey. And so I think one of the skills that I think people, even like you can start in elementary school, middle school, and high school. If you're watching this and you're in this age group, making sure that you are able to communicate with people, that you're able to look them in the eye, that you can get along with different kinds of people. A little bit of crisis management. Like if somebody says something to you that it takes you back a little bit, you have to kind of step back a little bit and think about it before you react, like not reacting, because we sometimes have grumpy customers. But I think the big thing is just like realizing what you're actually doing is bringing joy. You're bringing them music, you're showing them a new skill. You're like, you have to kind of have a really good mindset, a positive mindset, a forward-thinking mindset. Once again, what Arris said, the growth mindset. And have some of those soft skills like people skills and being able to stay focused and also being able to stay calm under pressure. Those are a lot of the good customer service people skills that our employees exhibit all the time. We have fantastic customer service with our customers. So.
And then one of the reasons I think that I specifically asked you guys to come on too is that beyond selling instruments and working with kids in that way, you guys are such amazing advocates for music education. You like practically single-handedly saved fourth grade strings in the county where we live. And well, not single-handedly, but you did a lot. And I think that is something that not everybody realizes, not just with your job, but I think with all of our jobs, is that we are always advocating for music education and music in general. And I think that's just a special piece of it.
Well, and I think if you love what you're doing, whatever the job may be, whether you're recording, whether you're playing, whether you're teaching, whatever it is, if you're not finding joy in that, figure out why, and then find the joy in it. And once you find the joy in what you're doing, once again, when I hand a child their first instrument, a lot of times I'll say to them, hey, listen, when you play at the Kennedy Center, I want you to invite me. And they're like, play at the Kennedy Center? That kind of a thing. But the possibilities are endless. And so starting at the very local level, I am constantly advocating for music education at the local level, moving up to the state. And every year, without fail, with the NAMM Foundation, I am at the Capitol Hill advocating for music education at the national level. So yeah, advocacy is very important too.
The one thing I would love to add is that, being an advocate means that that sometimes you have to help others to take the lead and teach them how to advocate for music and for education. And so one of the really great things that Jenna has helped with recently is she helped to start an organization called FACE, which is the Fairfax Arts
Coalition for Education.
And so it's been really great to watch her work in that organization with really dedicated teachers who care about music and the future of music education, and I'm making sure that people are really understand how important this is as a part of a core curriculum in school.
Wait, absolutely. There we go. And then, Pete, what secret skills do you need for all the ninja things that you do?
Recurring theme, I think organization's a huge one. I'll talk about the bass playing side first. I mean, even as a musician, as a freelancer, I mean, you're essentially running a small business. For all the time I spend on the stage, I probably spend twice as much time on the phone, coordinating logistics of which gigs where and how am I gonna get there and what equipment's gonna be waiting for me and just all that sort of thing. So yeah, just organization and people skills. I always say, being a freelancer, you got to be, obviously you need to be good at playing your instrument, but you got to be a good hang. People got to want to hang out with you. That's, I'd say, equally as important as being good at playing your instrument. On the production side, I think the obvious skills are the technical skills, just being able to work with audio signals and microphones and the gear, the technical side. But what really I find is a value added for me is you're almost a psychologist at the same time as you're a technician, because I'm working with a lot of artists and songwriters who are writing these songs and telling their stories, and it's a deeply personal thing. And it can be really easy to get in your head. So part of my gig, I feel like, and it's really helped me that I spent 20 years on the other side of the microphones, understanding where they come from, but to help, it's really a psychology gig, trying to help these artists get into spaces where they can feel free to tell their story and get the best performances out of them. So that's kind of something I picked up along the way.
I'd say that's very true for middle school teachers as well. I definitely felt like a therapist a lot. Here, come on, sit on my couch and here's some chocolate. Yeah. All right, John, tell us a little bit about all the things that you do and secret skills that might be involved.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the reoccurring theme is that we're all still in social work. Jenna, you never got out of it, and we're all in here, right? You used to have a degree in it. We're learning on the fly. But for me, I'm in an interesting spot right now because I'm, CEO of this global association, and my background started in teaching middle school. And I'd say a lot is it's a lot of the same skills. You learn very quickly that you take care of people, you comfort them. And I think through all of our career paths, as you excel in your career path, you realize that one of the most important skills is ability to learn, right? Because I don't have a degree in marketing. I don't have a degree in global trade or economics or anything, but those are things you can learn. You can go study just as Jason, okay, I don't know what a French violin is. Okay, I can learn this, right? Like there's things you can learn, but knowing how you learn and having a passion and realizing when you don't know what you don't know, and having faith that even if you don't think that you don't know what you don't know, there actually is something that you don't know, so seek it out. Because if you don't know it, you probably don't know you don't know it. Right. So just taking the opportunity to say, what do I need to learn? What skills do I need? All of those can be learned. So understanding how to learn and when to learn. And if you're not sure if you should be learning something new, the answer is yes, go learn something new. But again, all of that can happen later. The most important thing that we've hit on time and time again that we've heard is you take care of people. You learn, I mean, we all come from an industry where we create sounds or we teach others or stand in front of others and coach them on how to create sounds that make human emotion. And if we just step back at the highest level, like we are creating emotion in human beings through sounds, right? And maybe that first screech or cross of a violin makes someone cry, or maybe a beautiful sound from a trumpet, as I was a trumpet player, but we come from a place where we're serving people and we're creating like a very passionate experience for folks. You learn very quickly as a music teacher, or I really appreciate what Peter just said on the other side of the microphone, whether you're in front of the college marching band or that first customer, we can't do that thing, right? As you excel in your career, you realize that you can't play those instruments for those college kids or the middle school kids. You can't jump in the ISO booth and play that, right? So we have to inspire others to do that, so you realize, I think a lot about my current job. Like there's so much that goes on in our industry that I can't do and I'm not here to do, but I'm not responsible to do all of the pieces, just like an educator is not responsible to play the instruments. We are responsible for the people that are responsible to make the sounds and play the instruments. And when you learn that, when you realize that, in my role now, I am responsible for the people who are responsible for the people who are responsible for the people that are going to grow the global music industry, then you start taking care of people first. You become empathetic, you listen, and you give them what they need to be successful. And I think that's what a successful teacher does. That's what a successful learner does. That's what a successful leader does. And once you figure that out, then you just focus on taking care of people.
And I think that kind of ties really well just into the fact that that's kind of what music is. Music is about connecting with people, so whether it's teaching people or just playing with people, that's why we're here. We're passionate about sharing that art. There was a question in the Q&A, and by the way, if anyone else has questions, feel free to toss those in there. But there was a question asking if we here on the panel are still performing as well as teaching. And so, Arris, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I don't really. I'm the most performing I'm involved in is leading the ensembles that I teach. I don't play anymore, really. Yeah, I would just prefer
I still think conducting. I still think of conducting as an instrument itself. So I would disagree with you and say you are. So
well, I like to put the spotlight on the people actually doing like the majority of the work.
Myself, I play I have my violin here, my cello over there, but that's mostly just when I'm actually working on editing the pieces. I like to play them and just make sure that they make sense for the students that are going to be playing them. I don't play out professionally anymore. But I do enjoy conducting when I can. Jason, you still play violin, yes?
Yes, I do play occasionally. You have to unmute, Penny, I think.
No, you're
No,
right.
okay, good.
No.
All right.
I do. They can hear you.
I do play occasionally. I'm actually fortunate enough that I play in a quartet with my dad and my sisters. So we often play together at weddings and events, and I've also I used to play in a local symphony for about 15 years, but I left that because my life got a little hectic with 4 children and running a new business. But I do sub with lots of different orchestras around town when I'm called, and actually last October I got to solo with an orchestra, which was kind of fun. So yeah, the bug still bites you. You still want to play. You still you want to be able to perform, because that's what that's what we're doing for all with education, is teaching them how to perform, play under pressure.
We also encourage our employees to do that too. We actually will work around their schedules so that they can go play in an orchestra or play a gig or other things like that. So most of our employees actually still play professionally, especially our teachers. They actually play professionally. So.
Yeah, and I love that a lot of your employees are like future educators or future, some sort of business, professional, and that's neat to see.
They're the most qualified because they've also worked in the business.
Well, exactly. And so when you're just in love with music, you want to be a part of it any way you can. So what sort of advice do you all have for someone who maybe is thinking about a career in music? Maybe they're a high school student or a college student, or perhaps they're someone who's already in music or in a completely different field and wanted to do a little career change. Where should they start off? How do you get off onto a career path? Does anybody want to start with that one? Looks like John.
I'll start. From my experience, again, I would say that if you're a college student or a high school student or someone, you do not have to pick your final career right now, no matter what anyone tells you. Do not fall victim to you have to decide what you're going to do when you grow up, because I'd love to know what I'm going to do when I grow up. What you have to do is realize that, one, learning to play music and playing music will teach you things as a human being that I do not believe you will get anywhere else. The ability to learn how you learn, to practice, to improve yourself, to improve with an ensemble, to be part of something that creates human emotion, to have those experiences. They will make you a better human. They will make you a better learner. And with that, you can do anything you want. So I think, first of all, just going into it and removing from the vernacular ideas about career changes or career pivots, assuming that we have something we were supposed to do already, just find what makes you passionate. I'll tell you that we spend more time in our jobs and with our coworkers than we do with our families and at home in a lot of ways. And you do have to, think about, not you have to love what you do every day. Stick to what makes you happy. Obviously, keep learning and just be open to many, many doors throughout. And if you learn music, there are thousands and thousands of career opportunities in the music field that include not only playing and teaching, but making instruments, repairing instruments, recording instruments, teching instruments, doing sound, doing lights, working in manufacture, producing, innovating, designing new instruments and new sounds, software development, right? Marketing, there's so much you can do with music, but you don't have to feel like you have to get a degree now or a specialized skill set right now that's going to set you on the path for something in the future. Because I guarantee whatever you learn in your undergrad and you get out into the world, you barely know enough to know where to start. And that's okay. Keep learning, keep going.
Very good. Pete, go ahead and say something on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo a couple of key things that John said for sure. Like, number one, just be hungry. Always just be learning. Let your passion you feel towards music, it's probably pretty huge if you're coming to an event like this, and don't let it intimidate you. Lean into it. Let it drive you to places that you never knew you'd go. So yeah, I'll also just be open to many different opportunities. Just say yes, especially when you're starting out. Just say yes to opportunities, because you never know what's going to happen. And another key piece of advice is, on top of saying yes to everything, really think about what inspires you and what artists inspire you. And then, even though you might deify them and think about them as this huge superstar that's not walking on the same earth as you, reach out to them. They're just people. And some are busier than others, but reach out to them and tell them what you hope to do. And more often than not, you'll probably get a response from them. It might surprise you, and you get to meet some people that really inspire you. And believe it or not, they were standing where you are now, and they more often than not want to help you achieve what you want to achieve.
I totally get that, because when I was teaching, there were these composers that I just loved, and I would always program these composers. And now I am a composer, and there's people that'll be like timid to come up and say hi, and I'm like, no, it's just, I just live down the street, like, just say hi, like, I'm just a person, you can see me at the grocery store. Like, yeah, so yeah, I think that's great. Arris, what were you gonna say?
Yes, and yes to everything that John and Peter said. Absolutely, positively yes. I would layer onto that, do not be afraid to fail at things. Some of the best learning you have in life will come from failing. I had to learn that lesson as I went along, but I also think in any situation you can learn something you will do and something perhaps that you won't do. All of those things go together. And if you're willing to try things and take some chances and learn from your first attempt in learning, FAIL, the acronym, you can really be successful in whatever you want to do. And sometimes the failures are painful and you learn a ton. Sometimes you'll learn one little thing that you'll do differently for the next attempt that will make all the difference. So I know it's difficult. I know most musicians to a T are perfectionists, and we like things to go a certain way. But if you just liberate yourself from that, it can be really fulfilling.
That's fantastic. I was definitely one to be honest about, if I was in the front of the class and I made a mistake, kids, that was on me. Like, I made a mistake, and I think it's important to be honest, about that sort of thing. Jenna or Jason, you had something you wanted to add.
When I look back on my college experience as a performance major, I kind of I was kind of a little bit of a snot, because I was like, okay, I'm a music performance major. I'm going to play and perform and be a performer. And I never once gave education a second thought, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a performer. But then I got humbled a little bit trying to find a job and not being able to, getting really close trying to land an orchestra job and not getting one. And so I decided to say, okay, well, I've got a family to support, so I need to start teaching. So I started private teaching, and I also started teaching orchestra in Fairfax County. And I was like, oh, at first I was really, really grumpy about it, but then I realized I really liked it. And that's the one thing, is to not be rigid and to not have tunnel vision when it comes to what you want out of your musical career. Is to always be open to new things and new ideas, because you never know what you might find and what you might like and find passion about, because that kind of evolved into teaching orchestra for 18 years for me. And then also I also did my Suzuki teacher training as a violin teacher too. And that was an amazing experience. And I use those, and I still teach now. I teach 2 days a week. I love it. I won't stop.
I also am going to put a plug in for the music store, the music merchants. Go work someplace that interests you. Like I can't tell you how many music educators we hire to work in our shop, and they actually come out better qualified because they know how to set a sound post. They know what a bridge looks like. They know how to tune the instruments a lot faster. They have those skills that makes them a better educator. Plus, we have people that come in and say, wait a second, you can fix instruments for a living? Like I can learn this for a living? We have a current employee that she said to me the other day, she said, I've always wanted to play the cello. Always. Can I take cello lessons? Absolutely. You know what I mean? So like the sky is the limit. So if you're interested in a certain type of field, just intern or go find a job or go talk to somebody. I do informational interviews still to this day. I love informational interviews so much. Go do informational interviews. Find out what they actually do for a living. Find out what their strengths, what their weaknesses, what they love about their job, what they hate about their job, those kind of things. Informational interviews are so valuable because you find out exactly what they're doing. And then if you want to follow that career path, then you can then apply for a job or look for jobs in those kind of fields.
I've actually done quite a few of those. And that kind of ties into what Peter was saying. I've had college students that write me and say, I want to be a composer. How do I be a composer? And so I talked to them about my little corner of the world of composing, which is educational composing mostly. But there's also composing for Hollywood. Like our next session, we're going to have one of those composers out talking with us. He also happens to compose music for theme parks. Who knew that was a job? And he'll talk about it more. But I asked him, like, how did this come about? And it was just a conversation with somebody. And so I think that would be another just piece of advice. Just have conversations with people. I got into my current job by introducing myself at a booth at Midwest, which is a music educators conference that has huge exhibit halls, similar to what NAMM does. And, just getting to meet all the different publishers and having that actual FaceTime context is really great as well. And so let's see, as we kind of wrap up today, I'd love to know, what are some of the most fulfilling aspects of your job? What keeps you motivated to keep doing this? I can see Jenna just itching to answer this one. So go ahead, Jenna, and take it away.
Because I have the best job in the world. First of all, I get to advocate for music education so that children have the opportunity. I get to talk to decision makers and leaders, not just at the local level, state level, and the national level. I get to tell them how important music is. I get to celebrate the best communities in music that the NAMM Foundation gives out. I get to hand a child an instrument for the very first time so that they can start on their musical journey, so that they can feel the magic. I can't tell you how many times I've handed it to them and their eyes light up. The first time they touch it, they look at it in wonder. You can never kill the wonder of a child's eyes when they see their instrument for the first time. The power of music is so strong. The power of music is absolutely so strong. And so just no matter how you do it, whether you play it, whether you hand them an instrument, whether you record it, whether you stand in front of an entire stadium and do it, like the power of music is so strong. And I think that when you share the passion with that person on that one-on-one or that 1 in 100 kind of a situation, but I have the best job in the world because I start them on their musical journey.
Does anyone want to take Jenna on that and say that they have the best job in the world?
I'll say that I have the second best job in the world because we, as an association, work to empower members like Day Violins to do what they do. Right. I mean, that's really everything we do is about creating more music makers and providing a world that allows music retailers and manufacturers and educators and anyone working with music products worldwide to be successful. And, hearing, the amount of things that Jenna and Jason are able to do and all of our members do, it just, that's what keeps us going here for sure.
Pete, what about you?
My job's pretty good too. Yeah, I'm gonna echo some of the words that Jenna said. I mean, music it's so powerful, and it just touches at what it means to be a human and what experience we're all going through. And also what she was saying about just sharing passion. So what really keeps me going is working with artists who want to record a body of work and they want to tell their story, and they don't even 100% have it in focus in their head, but working with them to bring their project and birth it into the world, and going through the whole project of just planting the seeds all the way through tracking and mixing, and then leaving the mastering studio after the album's done you just feel like you're walking on air sometimes. So that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I feel similarly working with composers and getting to see their music come from, their original idea, through the editing process and then out to students, because that's where I love to see the music going is to students. And Arris, do you want to round it off here? Why is your job the best one?
I get to work with some of the most talented music majors and non-music majors, I would argue, in this country. Not to mention the fact that I get to do it in settings that literally allow me to do all the things that I like to do and make my job a lot of fun. So like in a day, I can go from teaching a concert band that's all music majors to being outside with 300 people who have chosen to continue their music participation on beyond their high school years, and then who will come back to us for alumni band almost as soon as they graduate. So it's always about the students and the musical experience for me. And I get to do all of that, like literally sometimes it's almost too much in the setting because there's so many things that are going on simultaneously, but I would not trade it. It's an awesome experience all around.
Yay. And we have a couple questions coming in on the Q&A. We just have a few minutes to touch on a few things. So we have a high school graduate who might want to do sound for like concerts or working in studios. So maybe Peter or John, do you want to touch on what first steps they might take to start on a path that way?
I just typed him, so Peter, you can.
Okay. Yeah, kind of touching on what I said earlier, how I kind of got into it was just finding people who do it, and don't be afraid to like just be around them and bother them almost. And go to concerts, and when you go to concerts, go hang out in the back with the guy working the sound desk and just have a conversation with him, and just show up, just kind of be visible to people, like reach out to studios. And a studio intern is not a glamorous job. You think you're going to be learning how to work huge recording consoles, but what you're really doing is sweeping floors and cleaning bathrooms. But what you get is the opportunity to be around everyone and just see how it all works and meet people. And that's I guess it's just showing up. Yeah, being visible. And one day there's going to be someone who doesn't show up to do their job at a session, and because you've been showing up, you're going to get a call. And it can happen as quick as that. And you've done that job, and now you've got a credit, so you can build on that. So
I love it.
This industry is, full of jobs right now. Like, we have a workforce shortage. So if you want a job in this industry, it is there, especially early on, like working with AV rental companies, studios, places where you could experience many different types of audio and sound, where you're doing sound for a band here, you might be in a club, you might be at a hotel, just learning about all the different areas. But look, I learned 3 rules as a professional musician that have kept with me throughout. And I think Peter's hit on all of them. And it's show up on time, know your part, and don't be a jerk. Right? Do those 3 things.
And on time early, right? Yeah.
Also, I know, because I'm board president and work with a lot with nonprofits, they are always looking for volunteers to do things. And I know that if you volunteer with a nonprofit, you're going to get a plethora of experience. Like the one that I work with very closely is DC Strings. We perform in the Washington, DC area. We perform at churches and libraries and places where people couldn't necessarily afford to go pay for tickets. And we're always looking for volunteers to help us with the sound systems and play the musicians and organize events and everything. So go find a nonprofit and volunteer. That is a really good way also to get some experience for a job.
Glad you mentioned that, Jenna. They say with like any nonprofit or any service, it's wealth, wisdom, or work, or time, talent, and treasure, right? If you're new in the career field, you might not have a lot of wealth to spend right now, and you might not have a lot of experience. But if you're willing to do the work, people will have you. Right. So be willing to do the work, be willing to put in the time, and you will go far.
And then, John, can you kind of tag on to that, what NAMM is doing right now with your careers initiative, so people could learn a little bit more about careers?
Yeah, absolutely. NAMM's mission is to strengthen the music products industry and promote the pleasures and benefits of making music. And we do that in several ways, including through our foundation. We have long focused on many, public campaigns, just elevating the importance of music making, from just play music to create to, it's been part of our 122-year history. Right now, the most important initiative that we have is focused around careers in music. It's called Consider a Career in Music. We're working on the right acronym, CACM. We're working on it. But Consider a Career in Music is our big initiative right now, because we want the world to know that there are many great jobs in the music industry, and that studying music and learning music is absolutely a path that will get you to a huge career field. Again, the perception right now, because a lot of what we do as a global association is change perceptions. The perception is you study music, well, you're going to play or you're going to teach. There's thousands of opportunities to do in the music industry. So if you go and study music, learn music, you're entering a lucrative and highly successful and highly passionate and highly fulfilling career field. So our dream is when a high school student goes to their parent and says, "Mom, Dad, I figured out what I want to major in college. It's music." Instead of the parents saying, "Wait, how long are you going to be in my insurance? Do I have to travel all the basement? What's going on here?" Instead, what they're going to say when we're done with this is, yes, study music, because I know that there's careers in music and there's valuable future for you in music. So we've started by focusing on partnering with the National Federation of State High School Associations, or NFHS, as put in the chat. We've created a careers in music landing page and a careers in music brochure, and we're targeting right now school counselors, the ones that are giving advice on what career fields to go into. And we're actively going out and educating them that there is a career path, and music is a career field, not just play or teach. So this landing page, you can download the brochure. You can request physical brochures to give out at your own high school or college. And we have lots of resources. And this is our big campaign right now. Consider a career in music and come to the NAMM show,
Well,
as
thank
Jenna
you.
will tell you.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you so much to our panelists tonight. Thank you all for joining us today.